Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. In this edition, I've got three very special guests to talk about the pre-season and, of course, the 31 players that have just gone on the plane to travel to Perth, Australia. We have got Richard Whitehead back with us. Richard, how are you?
How's it going, mate? Yeah, really good to be back on the show. It's been a little while. I took a sabbatical from the heartache of last season and decided that now is the time to rejuvenate my love for the team, the shirt, and let's get back on it. Get ready for next season. I think, it's been a traumatic kind of 4 or 5 months, and now we're starting to get the signings in. The infrastructure looks like it's going to be a little bit more solid than we've had over the last couple of years. So, hopeful is the word.
Well, I'm absolutely delighted to bring back Majestic and Gaz from the Same Old Spurs podcast. I've tried to get these guys on for some time, and I'm absolutely delighted to have you back with us. Majestic, it's been far too long. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a while, mate. So good to be back. As Rich was saying, I think I was as disillusioned as he was. But at the end of last season, Gaz trying to get a podcast out of me was hard, wasn't it?
Very tough. Very, very tough.
I said I keep saying the same things again and again. It's good to be basically good to be back. I paid up the money, re-signed up for the old season ticket again. They got me, and I'm already falling in love with Big Ange. I don't care if it's a hopeless love affair, but you know what? It's, as Rich was saying, a couple signings in already, and especially someone like James Maddison we'll get into later on as well. It's got me excited, and so good to be back here with you, Chris, and mate. Hats off, as we always say, Gaz, to Chris. Unbelievable coverage from you, mate.
Definitely, mate. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Smashing it, because even in the darkest times, you were there.
I'll tell you what, there's been a lot of them. So,
so many of them.
Fair play to keep going, mate.
Majestic, just want to talk about you personally at the moment, because every time I look on Instagram, you're in a different country, you're at a different festival, you're all over the place at the moment. How have you been dealing with it all?
It's been tiring, hasn't it, Gaz?
I don't get a lot of invites to it. Good, mate.
You fancy El Salvador?
Yeah, we're in.
El Salvador on a Tuesday night? It's like Stoke away. Honestly, summer's crazy. And we've obviously got this new single out at the moment as well with the Beyond Chicago boys and Alex Mills. So having a new single out as well as doing the festivals and Ibiza and Mallorca has just been crazy. I was supposed to be in Torquay tomorrow for Electric Bay Festival, but because of can you believe it, in July, weather warnings for strong wind and rain in July. They've had to cancel their festival, which is a real shame. But it means I can be with you guys tonight, which I'm absolutely excited about.
Talking football and Spurs, mate.
Yeah,
nothing better.
Exactly.
Come on.
Friday night off, the missus is like, we're going to do something nice. I'm like, no. We aren't talking Spurs, baby.
You double lock the shutters on here, haven't you?
I have. I've locked up the studio. She can't get in.
And Gaz, it's a pleasure having you back. I normally bump into you down the Tottenham High Road after a game.
Oh, no, yeah, bumped into you. I'd had a few drinks that day, Chris, so I do apologise if I was a little bit worse for wear, but watching that team at the end of that season, I needed to have a few. Blimey. But it's great to have us be back on, man. Thanks for asking us to come on.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Well, the Tottenham Hotspur team, or the squad, are now on the plane to Perth, Australia. The 31 players that have been named by Postecoglou: Austin, Basuma, Davis, Devine, Dyer, Højbjerg, Kane, Keeley, Kulusevski, Lo Celso, Maddison, Ndombele, Perisic, Porro, Reguilon, Richarlison, Rodon, Romero, Royal, Sanchez, Sarr, Scarlett, Skip, Solomon, Son, Spence, Tanganga, Udoji, Vicario, White and Whiteman. Players that have missed out because of injury: Bentancur, Forster, Brian Hill, Parrott and Sessegnon. And Lloris has not travelled because he's been granted permission to explore prospective transfer opportunities. Rich, let's come to you. Let's get your reaction on the squad announcement. Any surprises there for you?
Well, obviously when a new manager comes in, it's a little bit of a clean slate, and obviously we listened to him in his first couple of interviews. He's really key to kind of portray that as he's coming into a new club. He's great ambitions for our big club, and feels that we've got some good players, a good squad, and he wants to have a real good look at players before he makes those decisions, which I feel hasn't actually happened in the past. I felt a couple of managers that have come in, even Conte had already made those decisions before he came in the door around the players that weren't going to work in his system, or he wasn't even going to give a chance or the eyes over. And I think the players understand that it's a new start for a lot of them that have maybe come back off loan. And for me, I think it's a great opportunity to go to Australia, get into a real training camp environment with games, and actually test the players mentally, physically. Obviously, when you listen to the new manager, it's not just about the player's ability. He also wants to get to know the player and what the player can add off the field as well. And I think that's really important that the new manager really does invest in the players, because I think that's where you get the best out of a squad. Being an elite athlete myself, I know that when you're in that kind of hole of training and it's quite hard and stressful and you're knackered, and if you've got a manager that does really allow you to express yourself on the pitch but also off the pitch as well, it does mean a lot. So I think the clean slate will mean that a lot of these players will get that kind of last chance saloon kind of opportunity to be a successful Tottenham Hotspur player.
Majestic and Gaz, let's come to you and talk about the 31 players that have gone on the plane. Are you surprised that players like Ndombele, Reguilon, Joe Rodon, Lo Celso, are you surprised that they're there?
I'll be honest with you. I think the two that really stand out for me that he's having a look at, it's got to be Lo Celso and Ndombele. Obviously, both with huge price tags. This manager backs himself. It's clear. He fancies himself. So he'll fancy himself to deliver something. And what I mean by that is get a tune out of Ndombele or Lo Celso, something that other managers haven't done. That's a big tick box on his CV if that works out. Whether it materialises is another thing, but I definitely think he's having a little sire at them two for sure. I think there's a few people that have just gone there because they have to go there, keep fit, but there'll be quite a few of them still in the shop window for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right with especially Ndombele, because he's already spoke about him in press conferences. And I'm sure Daniel Levy's probably said to him, listen, this is a big asset for me. I've spent a lot of money on him. We can't sell him. No one really wants to buy him right now. So I think that's going to be one of his priorities. And the thing is, as Gaz said, he backs himself to probably get his arm around certain players. Definitely. And I think Ndombele, he probably will have a sit down with and give one of his inspirational talks. That's one thing I found with Ange so far is, he can really get you pumped. This is a guy that's come from the Scottish League. Other people are going, oh, it's the Farmers League. It doesn't really matter. But, he's won it all. He backs himself. He's calling himself a winner in every single interview. And the other thing that we've not had for a long time in this club is someone that we can really buy into as a man, not just a manager. And, I likened it to on our podcast recently. I said, Conte and Jose were like having, partners or girlfriends who are way too good looking for you. And they remind you all the time going, I'm better than you. And I will leave you at some point. And we're like, oh, thank you for being with me. Now Big Ange's like, listen, right, I'm ready to prove myself that I love you. And I'm going to show you that by putting my arm around you. So I'm excited to see what he can get out of Ndombele, because we all know how good of a football player he is. He's just lazy and he's not connected. He doesn't feel anything. And he's the kind of person that won't do anything for anyone unless he feels a connection.
Definitely. I thought it was a great clip on the socials that I just watched about an hour or so ago with him and James Maddison. Don't know if you've seen that. And you just think, there's something about this guy that you're going to play for him. You really are. I think he's managerial, from a managerial point of view, he's one-to-one coaching and the management, putting the arm around the shoulder, a bit Harry-esque at times, Harry Redknapp-esque at times. And I think that he's going to be really good for Tottenham. I've really got a good feeling about this, man. Really
I think some of the players that obviously over the last couple of seasons haven't really performed, I think that those players have not become bad players overnight. And whether the systems haven't worked or the managers have just not connected with the players. Like you said, I think maybe fits with managers and the actual team weren't right, and that showed. And now we've got somebody in that he actually wants to. He's picking a ship that's starting to sink, and then he's gonna plug those holes, and he's gonna make the ship better and stronger and faster and more robust. And we want to see that. And I think when we look at some of the real problem areas last season, he's got a real job to do with obviously the defence. But I think looking back at last season, it was the whole squad as an 11 that really did underperform in that defensive avenue. It wasn't just the back three or the back five or whatever you want to call it. I think for me, the whole team didn't really buy into the philosophy of the manager, and that's why we conceded so many poor goals last season.
Richard, are you surprised that players like Davinson Sanchez are travelling to Australia? Because there's been so many reports lately. Well, there's been so many reports lately about clubs offering Tottenham Hotspur money for him, and he's thinking about the move. Are you surprised that perhaps a younger player, one of the development players, haven't travelled instead?
If we all chip in on here, do you reckon we could just get rid of him anyway? Just like pay off his contract.
I want a double fee and get Dyer in that mixer as well.
The thing is, Chris, there's no academy players coming through defensively. Who's come through defensively from the academy over the last few years?
But
so
what
for someone to go and bridge that gap is going to be extremely difficult. I think Davinson Sanchez won't be at Tottenham this year, and I think for the Spurs fans just seeing him going on a tour, don't let that sort of pull you down a bit, because he won't be playing for Tottenham next year, 100%.
Yeah,
he's linked with a move to Russia. He's linked with a move to Galatasaray late. So something's going to happen, and I think Tottenham they're going to have to cut their losses on it, because I don't think you're going to get more than 10, 15 million pounds for him. But he definitely won't be at Spurs next year.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you look at the defence over the last couple of years and the real issues we've had against the top 6 sides with the likes of Davis, Dyer, Sanchez, etc., they're not good enough. If we've got aspirations to climb back into that top 4, then we need to have players that we believe are at that standard, that we can have the real honest conversation with ourselves and say these players can take us to the next level. Continually, time after time, have underperformed. It's time to move them on.
In the picture you showed at the start of the show, Chris, of James Maddison and Kane, was like, oh, this is amazing.
Fantastic.
And then there's Dyer. You're like, bro, there he is. Look at that. You got 2 absolute goats. And there's the guy at the end is like, hey, Spurs players made a documentary about me. I don't want to watch an Eric Dyer documentary.
Tell you what as well, the manager, he's looking at that and you think, like, he's gone and plonked himself alongside 2 marquee players for us next year, 2 very important players where you're hoping Harry Kane.
But that's what he thinks of himself.
Exactly.
He thinks himself.
That's the league he puts himself in.
Listen, Eric Dyer,
he puts himself in that category.
He's a fraud because he looks the part. He's got the haircut. He does the Hugo Boss signings. I'm a nutter. I'm going to have a fight for my brother. And then he goes on the pitch and he's just useless. Like,
see, I'm not from that ilk. I think he didn't have a great. He had spits and starts last year where you kind of thought he's an international player, but I don't think we've ever found a position for him that we can feel comfortable with. Obviously, when he came to the club, was he a holding midfielder? Was he a centre back? What's his best position? I think defensively, as a centre back, he's not mentally capable of that position.
Exactly.
I think technically he's capable. I think technically he's quite
capable for whole.
He loves the Hollywood pass, doesn't he?
He loves,
he loves the Hollywood one. He looks for it all the time. But when it don't pay off, you got to stop doing it.
And remember, when he did play as a holding midfielder, it was next to Moussa Dembele. Now, if I played next to Moussa Dembele, I'd look good.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's it. And I think obviously, like when Toby was at the club, and obviously Toby was doing those kind of long balls
and executing
to Harry. Yeah, and executing them. Yeah, well, obviously Dyer's maybe been asked to play that role, but obviously very poor technically in obviously those long passes. So I think in some respects, I think he's been played out of his best position.
Majestic, out of the players that have travelled, who do you think will be the surprise packages in this squad? Can Ange Postecoglou get the best out of someone like Tanguy Ndombele? Because, as Gaz said, it doesn't mean anything really that some of the players like Sanchez have travelled. It doesn't mean that they're going to get Premier League minutes and even be a Spurs player next season. But can you see Ndombele wearing the Premier League badge for Tottenham Hotspur again?
I think I can, and I know a lot of people have written him off, but I'm such a man for the underdog. I love backing the underdog until the bitter end. And I think I've seen enough of him in spouts to see that he is a very talented footballer. And you speak to any professional that's played with him, and I've spoke to some of the players about him. And even you speak to Danny Rose and he talks about Ndombele and how good of a player he is. So technically, we know how good he is. It's like, if we can get him to buy into something, and again, as a footballer, as Richard says, as an elite sports person himself, you know it's mental. If you can win the battle mentally and you buy into something, you buy into your coach's philosophy, you believe that what they tell you is going to help you become better and help you win, then you'll give it 100% and you will get fit and you will do the yards. And the thing is as well, the kind of football that I'm expecting Ange to play, and I've spoken to a lot of Celtic fans about this and the way he likes to play, you know, they're all very confident that, you know, Ndombele can suit his style because he will have protection. And, you know, and for me, that's what play to people's strengths. And that's what I found that, you know, the likes of, you know, Conte and Jose didn't do. They didn't play to people's strengths. They weakened us. And as Richard said, we shipped a lot of goals last year. And yeah, of course, having the woeful defense that we've got hasn't been helpful. But the style of football that just allows people to come on top of us, anyone's going to panic, even if you're a Premier League footballer, because that game moves so fast and you're moving the ball around side to side. You know, you're going from Højbjerg to Skip. And as soon as Bentancur got injured, there was no one that could change that passage of play to go forward. So we just invited pressure on us. Ndombele is so good on the ball. You try and win the ball off him. You look at those old clips.
Look, mate, he's got a pedigree. He's got a lot of ability. But can you rely on him for a 38-game season? And that's the problem, because you need to turn up to training every single day and apply yourself again. And when the going gets tough, you have to look at yourself. I don't know if you're going to get that from this man. But as I said, I think that looking at the manager and the way he is, he'll see that as a project for himself.
Stephen says Ndombele hasn't performed under 3 or 4 managers, including managers in other countries.
And that's exactly why it could be a reason why Ange will think he can.
I get that, but the good thing with Ange is he'll have a look in Australia, he'll work with him, he'll see his attitude, and he'll just make a decision.
I agree.
So that's the one good thing with Ange. I think he doesn't take any nonsense. He's not here to like look after anyone. He's just going, right, I need to do what needs to happen. So we shall see. Other people, you know, even people like Roden, who I don't think have actually had a proper go at the club. I know you disagree. Give him a go. Let's see. If the manager sees something in a player that, you know, is something he can use for his formation. Remember, as well, this is different for us. We've had this 5-3-2 nonsense for so long that we're going to a different style now, and some people might be better suited to it. So we shall see. Like, obviously, everyone's looking at Ndombele. We forget about Lo Celso. The guy's an Argentinian international.
The link with Barcelona today.
You know, like, there's a reason why he plays for Argentina. So again, it's managers and what can you get the best out of them. But, you know, what's exciting as well about this preseason is seeing the likes of Maddison and Kane link up, and, you know, all the talk of Kane and is he going or not. I think all the Spurs fans have been confident that he's staying for at least another year and giving us that final year. And he looks excited by having Maddison around him. You know what? And getting players excited again is something that's really important for me, because that is, I think, was missing from us last season. The lack of excitement. You can see when the lads enjoy the football. At the end of the season with Conte, when Kulu was on fire, so was Son. They was all enjoying themselves together up that front. And then as soon as everyone seemed like they weren't enjoying it, it's just heads down, and they didn't enjoy it. We didn't enjoy it. And I think it's just a fresh start for everyone, Chris.
Gaz, I get Majestic's excitement as well. Ange Postecoglou, I think, is a breath of fresh air at the moment. And a lot of Spurs fans were extremely happy when the Maddison announcement came out. But since then, a lot of Spurs fans are now asking that question, where are the centre-backs? Do you think we're going to sign a couple of real quality centre-backs in this transfer window? Are you confident?
Absolutely. I do think that we need to be patient. I think that Tottenham that might sound a little bit silly, because you look at the way that we go about our business and we normally leave it to the wire to get things done to sort of save the pennies. But I think this recruitment at Tottenham needs to be right. We can't afford to have a situation where we bring players in.
Don't rush it.
We can't bring players in and we're in a situation where we're going, he's not good enough 6 months down the line or another year. So you need to get the right ones. So look, there's a lot of criticism that myself and all Spurs fans give the club for recruitment. It's not been good enough, so it needs to be better. So if you need to take a little bit longer to be sure on the signings and to be sure on the players that you're bringing in, take your time. There's still a long time before the window closes.
Yeah,
hell of a long time. Ideally, you want your players in for this tour and for your friendlies, but it's not always the reality. So I think we need to be a bit patient, and Tottenham will bring in a couple of centre halves for sure. Just a matter of time. Just when.
Gaz, this might be a really silly question, but how big is this rebuild for Postecoglou?
Do you know what? I'm quite positive about Spurs in a way, because I'm looking at Richarlison and Basuma, and I said this on my own podcast. Them two are new signings for me.
Yeah,
done nothing last year. They're not going to be any worse. Richarlison ain't going to get one league goal this year, that's for sure. You're looking at Basuma. He looks very, very confident, looks happy in training, looks like a different player. Been quite vocal in what he's been saying about the season ahead as well. And I think we've got two good players there. And don't get me wrong, if you can get Kulusevski back playing the way he did before last season, Sonny had a hernia injury last year. So if he can get over that and get going properly, Harry just doing Harry, Richarlison turning up, Basuma, Bentancur coming back from injury, Porro, add a few.
Destiny.
You got to be start looking a bit. You combine that with a new manager we're all buying into. You got to look at it positively from the get go. If 6 to 8 games time ain't worked out, then pull it apart then. But as a Spurs fan now, be positive. Going into a new season, everyone's on 0 points from that first game. Let's have it. Right? Genuinely.
Rich, how are you feeling? Are you feeling excited as a Spurs fan right now?
Well, obviously you knew what I was feeling when we had Mourinho and Nuno, and I think Conte the style of play was not great, and even when we were up to fourth, you could kind of see the free fall coming, and you could see that it just wasn't working. The relationship wasn't working. I think at the moment the messages out of the club are different. It's a new start. It's a fresh start. It's a fresh approach. I think we're going to see a different style on the pitch. I'm sure we all remember that North London derby when we're 3-0 down at half time, and you kind of go, what the hell am I watching here? Like, this is like the worst kind of team, worst performance we've ever seen at home. And then I kind of, since then, and since obviously the end of the season, I've kind of thought about what I'm seeing as a professional athlete, but also kind of seeing as, how do you move forwards? And it's that philosophy. The philosophy needs to change, and that's why they've gone in a different direction with the manager. And I can see why the boys are really excited. Obviously, Ange's had a lot of experience in other leagues. Coming to the Premier League, it's about having that template and then rolling out that template and really believing in your process. If you listen to what he says, he talks about there might be times when it might be quite tough in the beginning, but then we need to stick with it because he believes in what he delivers, and he promises a certain style of play, and that's important. It's important that you believe that, and you don't kind of just jump on the first bad result or the first poor 45 minutes. Where last season, in the first 45 minutes, we might as well have been in the changing rooms because we never turned up. Never turned up. It's terrible. That's terrible. So philosophy's changed. New template. I think the players that buy into it will stay. The others will leave. But hopefully we can get rid of the players that we should have got two or three seasons ago, like the Davinson Sanchez and maybe the Dyers and maybe the Davids of this world. But we need to have, I think in that area, we need to have leaders. We've lacked leaders in the past. I don't think Hugo was ever vocal enough on the pitch. I don't think we need to have a centre back or a strong player in the centre of the park that really dominates the play from the pitch side, as in leadership. And I want to see real leadership this year in the Spurs first 11.
Majestic, who are the leaders in the Tottenham camp at the moment?
So it's a hard one. As Richard said, I think our club captain isn't vocal enough. He's definitely not a captain for me. Eric Dyer pretends he's a leader, but he's not. Harry leads by example, but he's not very vocal. Obviously, there's a big talk of Højbjerg going. He is a leader for me. You look at him; he does have the leader capabilities, and you have seen him riling up at the other players during certain games. But his performances at the end of last season were dreadful. As soon as Bentancur was out, he was shot to pieces. Realistically, for future, James Maddison is a future captain. James Maddison is really good. He's a good talker. So we need to see that. But, it's going to take a whole team to change that. As Richard said, it's the philosophy. And
I'd like to see Romero as a captain of Spurs, personally.
Yeah, but he needs to settle.
But what he needs to do is he needs to cool his head a little bit.
Yeah, but that's
part of his game.
But also that comes from last year with Cuti. He'd given up. They all just did not get into it. Conte lost the changing room. He's looking around thinking, I'm an Argentinian World Cup winner, right? Why am I here? So he needs to refine his sort of focus in Spurs, because when he is on and he needs to play with someone better, there's a lot of comments in the comment section about the centre backs, and as Spurs fans, we really do panic. Oh my God, there's no centre backs yet. There's no centre backs. To get these deals done, it does take a long time. You know, look at Arsenal with Declan Rice. Declan Rice was still having it large in O Beach last week. He ain't signed it yet. You know, like, it does take a while to get. It's not. This is big business that people are doing. It doesn't just happen. Like, so
we can't afford to get it wrong.
Yeah.
We can't afford to get it wrong, and like, it will happen. It will happen. We just need to all be a little bit patient. And I know it's difficult.
Yeah,
but
I do think it's very clear by all the talks that are happening that we are looking to sign these two centre backs.
Arguably, apart from, say, what Eric Dyer in that back line, who's a question mark, none of them players will be playing for Tottenham next year. Adamant about that. I'm adamant. Perisic is sorry, Chris. Perisic has turned up for training. You see his look on his face when he turned up. He couldn't be anywhere worse in the world. He can't wait to get out the door. He won't be there. He's linked with a move back to Croatia. Sanchez is. It's just going to take time for these people to fall off. I'm in a place where I'm not too worried about players leaving the club. I'm really not. Like, that's as our fans, we can't control it. Don't worry about that. It will happen. Just, they're not going to be playing for Spurs next year. If they are, then there should be a boycott. But I have to trust this new process. I have to trust that Big Ange sees these players and goes, nah, not for me. And there'll be the hierarchy there going, no, we've seen this too often now. There's a lot of people that know their football at that football club. You know what I mean?
We talk a lot about new centre-backs. Who do you think is the first choice left-back and the first choice right-back currently?
Oh, that's a great question, isn't it? Again, that all depends on systems. Because if you're going to play with four at the back, you might even say that Emerson, you might even say that Emerson Royale would be a shout over Porro, because Porro defensively looked absolutely awful at the end of last season. But going forward, he's so good. But again, speaking to Celtic fans, they always say that he plays with inverted wingers. So then all of a sudden, you're like, well, okay, then Porro might be a shout. So it's really, and then again with Destiny coming in, who, you know, looks a real good prospect, but the Premier League is a complete different ball game to Serie A. So it's like, do you throw him in the deep end and go, let's try that? So it's really difficult to, and I think this is why, you know, this pre-season with the players that we've got already is really interesting, because he's going to give them a go, see what works best in his system, and that's how we will find out who's going to be best suited for those positions. Playing this system is going to be so different to what we're used to, and the lads are going to really find it tough to change that mentality of where they've been before, because when you're going to have to be in a four, you know, you can't be exposed in the way that you can sometimes when you've got three centre backs.
Gaz, the reason I asked that question is because Destiny Udogie has most of his career played as a left wing back and not a left back. And it always seems that whatever manager we've had, we've gone out and spent money on these players, and then we've changed the manager very quickly after, and then we play a different system. Emerson Royale being one of them, he's asked to be, you know, a right wing back when we bought him, when we had a back four. Do you think he's going to fit in to be our left back for next season at the start of the Premier League season?
That one I've got my question marks over, because I've been listening to people in his team talking about there was a possibility that it wasn't given he was actually going to come back to Spurs and start this season. But I think Reguilon's got a chance. I think they'll be having a look at him again. But also, if they bring this Van der Ven in, he can play as a left back as well. So if you're bringing in Tapsoba to playing as a centre half, and maybe Van der Ven could go to the left hand side as a left back, there's options there. But I do think that Reguilon's definitely got a chance, but he needs to knuckle down and prove himself, because he fell off at the end for me at Tottenham. It become too much about him and his missus on Instagram and social media. He needs to concentrate on the football a bit more. But I do think his missus is high class, honestly. She's a fantastic looking bird, but we got to concentrate on the football a little bit from time to time. And I think he lost his way a little bit. He lost his way a little bit for me.
It's all that what's it called, cured ham that they had during lockdown. It went to his head.
Yeah.
Did you agree with that though, about Reggie?
I bet you follow her on Instagram, Gaz, didn't you?
Sorry, mate.
You follow her?
Nah, she follows me, Chris.
I think when you look at, going back to your question about obviously left and right backs, I think Andrew wants to have players that play in multiple positions. So that's why he's obviously looking options that can be very versatile. And I think also his system will change depending on teams that we do play. And that was one of my concerns under Conte. He played a very similar system at home and away, and it didn't work. So hopefully he can have that dynamic squad, that a player can play 2 or 3 different positions, play the players in their best position, but then have that versatility as well, to enable Ange to have some real options, especially in-game options as well, and have those impact players coming off the bench. I always talk about having the weapons on the bench to kind of come on and have that impact at maybe 60 or 70 minutes when we're drawing, or we need to have some kind of penetration through the lines. And I think that's where Ndombele might play that part.
Richard, have you been impressed so far with our transfer business? Because, of course, Vigario's come in, Solomon and Maddison. Of course, Porro and Kulusevski's deals have been made permanent as well. With James Maddison, how much of a difference is he going to make to that Tottenham Hotspur team? Because I remember, like, last season, every single podcast after a game would come on and say, lack creativity. Is he going to be the real difference for us?
Well, I think... is it going to be a difference? I think when you look at, obviously, the difference he made into a really poor Leicester squad last season, and the amount of assists and the opportunities he created for a poor front line for Leicester last season, I think he's obviously broke into the England squad after personally a very good season. I think in front of goal, dead ball as well. How many times have we been crying for somebody to, when the ball's placed down for a free kick, Kane don't take it, James is going to kind of get his hands on that ball, I'm sure, and maybe put a couple in the top left and right corners. So that's going to have an impact. But also, I think because last season we were very predictable what was going to happen, and it was going to be we're going to absorb a lot of pressure and then break. Well, I think now we're able to build through the lines. We're able to have somebody in the middle of the park that isn't Harry. That's not. I think Harry will be better in front of the post as well. I think he's possibly be able to score more goals because of the introduction in Maddison in the starting 11, and also not just down the lines. I think Maddison will be a more vocal point that we can utilise as well. So I think it's a great signing. I think Ange's real honesty with him from the start around how Spurs are going to be seen this season, and saying, actually, if you're not part of it, you'll see a different Spurs. I think that was a great thing to do, which we've not had that honesty before. I always talk about trust and honesty within the team. And I think that's what he brings, which is totally different.
Majestic, surely James Maddison now has to be on the Tottenham free kicks.
Absolutely. I'm just looking at some stats here, Chris. I love a stat. And I'm just comparing James Maddison to Eriksen, because he said it in his first interviews. He talked so highly of Christian Eriksen. And for me, we never replaced Eriksen. We haven't replaced him. I think we finally have. If you look at Maddison against Christian, 163 versus 265 appearances. So Christian's had 100 more. Maddison scored 43 goals and Christian scored 53. So he's 10 less and 100 games more for Christian. And in terms of assists, 32 assists versus 74, when you've got Harry Kane in front of you, assisting is going to be a joy, because Harry will find the space. And the other thing is, for us, which is exciting, is that we're going to see Harry not have to do everything himself, not have to drop deep and find those passes. And the link up between him, not just Harry, but Son and Kulu either side. When they came to Spurs last season, me and Gaz were there first half watching Maddison. He had almost a bit of a free role in that number 10. And it was a joy. It was a joy to watch. Like, we were getting battered, and it was just, he was ripping us apart. And he has got such a vision of the game. And I think this step up for him, he's going to really want to impress. He's a guy that really wants to be in that England fold. He sees himself as a top player. So he is going to want to do good. And obviously, as we said on the podcast before, Gaz, I'm the reason we signed James Maddison. Last year
I was
in
going to ask
Ibiza.
that. I was going to ask that. What was he like in Ibiza?
Yeah, last season in Ibiza, I saw him and I'm like, Madders, we need you at Spurs. He actually said, I'd love to come, was his exact words. And then I started doing my Brendan Rodgers impression to him. I'm very proud of you, James, very proud of you. But if you keep going all beach, you're not coming back to my club. And he was like, this sounds too real. But yeah, you know, he was singing Glory, Glory, Tottenham Hotspur with me in O Beach last season. So I planted the seed. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. And you know what? What's really interesting is reading the comments tonight. And, you know, some of the people that are feeling negative about Spurs right now, the way to look at it is like this. This is a fresh start for us all. It can't get any worse because that style of football has just left us all feeling like this. Just Maddison alone, that one signing alone, transforms the way that we're going to play this football, because the reason why we've looked so woeful defensively, right, is because we've invited pressure on time and time again with a very average to poor defense. When you remove that pressure and you're on the front foot, you're going at team. The amount of times we've sat there, guys, at Spurs, we've gone, why are we not going at this team?
Yeah,
we've just scored a goal. Well, Bournemouth, when we went up against Bournemouth, and we just, again, sat back and they went and beat us. I think someone like Maddison, you know, dictating the play in that park, it's just going to be so fun to watch. And the thing is as well, when you've got that person in Maddison that you can trust with the ball in the centre of your midfield, the defenders can just give it to him and not have to play around at the back all the time the way they have done and just keep inviting pressure on. So I'm so excited to see Maddison just because we've lacked that player for so long. And you can see already from Harry, even that picture you put up at the start, Harry's excited to play with him because he knows that this guy is going to look for him. And Madders would have said to him, Harry, I'm going to assist you non-stop.
Catch fire, that combination.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Catch fire, for sure. Definitely. There's going to be some serious chemistry between them.
And don't forget, you've already got the combo of Kane and Son. You throw that guy into the mixer, it's going to be unbelievable. I did see, again, O Beach is the place for the footballers. I saw a Leicester player, Luke Thomas, of course, European champion with England, on, when was it? Monday, because he's good friends with our stat man. He went to school with our stat man on the podcast. And the stuff he was saying to me about Madders, he goes, you don't understand how good this footballer is. He was just like, what he's going to do for Harry Kane. He goes, imagine if we had Harry Kane last year at Leicester. He goes, we wouldn't have gone down. Because Madders made the balls.
It's an exceptional bit of business from the chairman.
Oh, it is.
To bring him in for that amount of money. What is it, 40 million?
Considering Mason Mount's gone for 60, 70 and Declan Rice is going for 105.
It's great.
It's great business.
Definitely.
On that point, Gaz, are you surprised that Spurs have not appointed a director of football yet?
That's a difficult question, Chris, but it all depends on it all depends on what the manager thinks. He might enjoy having a bit more of a say himself. I think there's been a clear structure at Spurs where obviously the previous director of football, sporting directors, whatever you want to call them, they identify the personnel that they want to bring into the club. I think this man's got a bit more of a say. I think he calls a few more shots over there. So that might be one of the reasons why it's a bit slow at the minute in appointing someone. You just don't know, really, unless you're on the ground. What do you think about that, Chris?
I think Spurs are actively looking for a director of football. And it's funny because, of course, Daniel Levy gets a lot of criticism from the Tottenham Hotspur fans, but that James Maddison deal excited and does excite a lot of people. The way that Majestic talks about James Maddison, you know, it makes anybody excited about going forward as a football club. But when you think that Harry Kane scored 30 goals in 38 Premier League games in a struggling side that finished 8th out of European places last season, what on earth are they going to do next season? And as you rightly said earlier, guys, like players like Richarlison, players like Heung-min Son underperformed, didn't really get chances last season. They're going to be like new signings. Basuma is another one. Bentancur when he comes back. So there is some excitement. I don't think we're going to struggle for scoring goals, but it is about defensive reinforcements for me. But I am confident that Spurs will get in some. It just depends on what kind of quality that we do get in. Gaz, let me come back to you. Vicario, the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on him? Are you excited?
Definitely. I'm a bit strange how he's been given number 13. I'm not too sure what the thinking is behind that. We've seen, obviously, what's happening with Lloris today, been left behind. He's not travelled, so he's been told he can look for a club. He's going to come in and be number one. Vicario, for sure. Look, me and Maj said on our own podcast, if Buffon's talking about you and waxing lyrical about you, you listen as a fan because that is one of the goats when it comes to goalkeepers. So I think, look, again, it comes back to recruitment. we've been asking that the recruitment needs to be better. We might have identified a gem there and not paid a premium. Only time will tell. But you've got to get behind the signing, and I'm fully behind it. And I don't think we're going to have another Galini case. Let's just put it that way. I think this guy's a bit of...
Well, let's hope he stays off the roof of the Spurs and don't do a rap video.
That's a start. Let's stay away from the rap videos and concentrate on doing a few saves. But look, Tottenham are going to have a clear philosophy. Hugo Lloris struggled big time from his feet, didn't he? That was a big, big problem from Tottenham. If you're a fan over there, how many heart attacks were going around the ground watching some of that tippy-tappy out the back? So you got to be capable of moving it around from the back. That's just a modern-day goalkeeper. I think we might have a good goalkeeper for sure. But as I said, only time will tell.
Richard, as Gaz said there about Hugo Lloris, his last game for Spurs was that first half 5-0 down against Newcastle at St James's Park. How would you describe his time at Spurs? And it just seems like a sad time to leave. The fact that his last appearance was that game.
Yeah, and obviously being a World Cup winner as well and bringing that experience of winning major honours for his country, you'd expect him to brought that more to a Spurs team and really lift some of the players. He showed some like real kind of fantastic moments, but like the boys were saying, that very weak on the floor. When the pressures actually around him, just didn't look very comfortable at all. And yeah, last season was found out even in his shot stopping as well. And I'd be like shouting the praises about Hugo's like shot stopping before last season, but very poor last season. And I think he stayed probably a season too much, and that's impacted his legacy on, that he's had with the club. But yeah, I think Spurs have had the players and really kind of kept them too long, and Hugo's been one of them. And maybe because he's been obviously the captain as well, that's had an impact on that. We should have gave that to somebody else. But hopefully with the new keeper that's come in, he's young, he's brave, which he'll need to be. I think he's going to be a keeper that would marshal the defence and from the back. And obviously coveted by a lot of Italian teams. I know Inter, obviously, they were looking to pinch him off offers before he came. So, yeah, exciting, and unfortunate for Hugo to have left in those circumstances.
Majestic, Brian Hill hasn't made the plane due to a back injury. Do you think he will be? Do you think he'll be in a Spurs shirt again in the future, or do you think Spurs will look to offload him?
It's a strange one with him, isn't it? Like me and Gaz have this section on the podcast where we just go, "Hey, bye." There seems to be his journey at Spurs. It's like 1 minute it's hey and it's bye. Like literally, when he done his signing on video, it's just like Brian Hill, hi, and that was it. Bye. And it's just like, oh hi. And then next minute he's gone somewhere else, like bye. So hi, bye. I don't know with him it's going to be a hi or a bye, but he really does look like a good little player. I just think, you know, that the age-old saying of get on the weights, mate. Oh yeah. He needs to get down the gym. He needs to get down Monster Gym in Cheshunt for a year and get pumping because he's just too lightweight. And it's just in the Premier League, as nimble as you can be, if you ain't got a bit of something about you that can bounce off those bodies, it's gonna be difficult for him. So, you know, in those positions, especially with that Solomon coming in as well, you've got Kulu, you've got Sonny. You know, do we need another person? Maybe. Like, I like him as a footballer. But as I say, it's a shame he's got injured before that tour, so you could see a bit about him, and Big Ange could see what he's about. As I say, he's definitely got talent as a footballer, and he can cut inside really well. But it's just that the weakness for me that's a problem. Just to go back to the stuff about Lloris quickly, it's such a shame and sad that both De Gea and Lloris are just going to sort of just fade off into the night from their clubs. Like, he's been struggling as well. Yeah, but De Gea's gone, and again, he's just gone in a bit. See you later. I didn't get a video or anything. You know, like Lucas Moura got the big moment and the big send off. You know, I see Azpilicueta getting a big moment in the send off. I know, obviously, he's won everything at Chelsea, but you know, with Lloris, he does deserve a little moment for Spurs because he has been an incredible servant. I likened it on our podcast too. He is the family Labrador that you've loved for 14 years. But unfortunately, the day comes, you have to take him to the vets. You don't tell the kids about it. And you say, look, it keeps coming upstairs and pissing on the bed. Like, we can't have him anymore. Like, that's what he's been. And you look at him, when you look at the eyes, I'm sorry, boy, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to have to. And you're right, Richard. That's what we should have done last year. We should have said those goodbyes last year. But again, just to give Hugo a little out, and I like to give Hugo an out, is when you've got that defence in front of you, you're just going to get peppered in you, because it's not the days of Toby and Jan in front of you, is it? It's this makeshift defence.
I agree with you 100% there. Just to jump back on that quickly, Chris, about Brian Hill, I think that Solomon signing, that could well be the end for Brian Hill, that one.
Let's come on to Solomon in a minute, guys. I just wanted to ask, with Brian Hill, what would benefit him more? Another loan abroad, or would it be a loan in the Premier League, or would it be a loan to a Championship club? What would benefit him more?
I've been amazed that Tottenham haven't loaned him to a Premier League club. Why are you sending someone out to Spain to go and do their work out there when it's really, it's different to football?
Get him in the Championship.
It's different. You get him in the Premier League.
All the jumps.
He's gone out there. He's picked up a Europa League. Well, unbelievable for him. but yeah, I think there's a bit of pedigree with a player there, but I just can't see a future for him at Tottenham. Just really can't.
Get him over Luton.
Yeah, I just can't really see a future. What do you do? Do you keep using the loan facility for someone like that? If it is going to be that route, Tottenham have to send him out on loan to someone in the Premier League. It can't be abroad, but he might not fancy that. And this is where the players have got control as well of that situation. If you don't want to go on loan to Bournemouth or Burnley or wherever it might be, you don't have to go. So the move's going to have to suit him. So it's a tough one, that. But yeah, we'll have to see.
Guys, sorry, you're going to mention Manor Solomon. There didn't seem to be a lot of excitement from a lot of Tottenham fans about this signing.
Yeah, the reason why that is because it's not got a £60 million price tag attached to it. This is what I keep saying. Just because there's not a 50, 60, 70, 80 million pound price tag attached to a transfer does not mean it's not going to be a success.
And so you know what's testament to that is really Brighton. We all look at Brighton and go, look at the amazing stuff they're doing, and they go under the radar with their players, and then all of a sudden they become 60, 70 million pound players.
Go back, look at some of the deals of Dele Alli, how much we paid for him, Christian Eriksen, how much we paid for him. You look at the people that we've spent a hell of a lot of money on. Richarlison, record signing, Undembele in that list, Lo Celso, all ain't pulled up. So time will tell. But I've had a little look at him. I think he's got low trajectory. We said he reminds me of Aaron Lennon a little bit. Goes on the outside, looks to beat his man, can cause danger. Might be a good bit of business. Again, game times for him, opportunities. It's going to be limited for a lot of players this season because we're only playing one game a week, two if there's a Premier League game in midweek. So I think I'm not sure this manager is going to start chopping and changing. I think if he finds his formula, he'll stick to that. So game opportunity is going to be difficult.
I wanted to ask you all this question. We'll start with you, Rich. Out of the 31 players that have travelled on the plane to Perth, Australia, when the Premier League starts for Tottenham away at Brentford, how many of those 31 do you think would have been sold?
We're allowed to use a calculator for this, Christian.
Yeah. Wow. But then it's the hardest thing is obviously getting clubs to take them anyway. And as we know that it's okay signing vast amounts of players, but it's not that easy to get rid of them, especially if on.
This sounds like a politician's answer.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm like because I'm trying to think about my answer as I'm chatting. So I would probably say we're going to get rid of maybe 4 or 5. I don't think it's going to be. You can't in one window. You can't shift 12 players. It's just unrealistic. You just can't do it. And there will be still players that we believe aren't up to standard that are still with us when the transfer window shuts. And that's just going to happen, unfortunately, because we might not be able to shift them. They're on long contracts or whatever. And as we know, some players just run down the contracts as well. So I would say probably we'll get rid of 4 or 5 of those players. Maybe Lo Celso would go. I think defensively, 2 or 3 of those centre backs would go. And yeah, we'll see. Really, I just hope we keep our better players, create that real strong infrastructure, and then add some real gems. And hopefully, this Solomon's one of them.
The Ryan Sessegnon situation's a really frustrating one for a Spurs fan.
Yeah.
I'm not being funny because this is a player that come in for 20, 25 million pounds from Fulham. Real pedigree. Just hasn't hit the ground running at all under different managers, and he has had games. He's been injury prone, and you're looking at that, and that was a player for me that would. Well, it was crucial that he left the club this summer. Linked with Nottingham Forest. We have a couple of Norwich fans who listen to our pod saying he's been linked heavily with a move there, but he gets himself injured and he's not going to be available, and he is not going to be picked up now. So you're going to be left with a player till January at the minimum. He's not going to be fit, so he's probably not going to go then. And you got a player at the club who is hoping to probably move on, and he's going to be sticking around. And that's a tough one to take, that one, because
I think
he's not good enough for me.
Yeah, Sessegnon for me was always frustrating because I think in the final third just didn't look confident enough. Had so many opportunities when obviously him and Sonny were kind of interlinking, and then it'd be one-on-one with a keeper and then blaze it wide, or just confidence really lacking. And whether that's the relationship with the past managers and him, obviously I know Mourinho was saying at the time that he's going to be an England international for the next decade or something, whatever he said. I just didn't really see it. I think for me, he came in with a lot of expectation and he's delivered none of it.
Yeah, spot on.
Majestic, I can tell that you've got a long list of players. These 31 players, how many do you think will be sold before the start of the Premier League season for Tottenham?
Well, first of all, just looking at some of the comments as well, shout out to Paul Russell. You know, everyone keeps going on about the 2 centre halves that we need to bring in, and everyone is so. Listen, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that if you change the style of your football, you are not going to invite so much pressure onto you. So everyone just needs to chill out about the centre halves for a second. I believe we're going to get them in. But and this ain't, God help us if it happens, but even if Eric Dyer and Davison Sanchez were our back 2 centre halves, just changing the style of football and being more attacking with us. No, I'm not going to.
Let's not go there, Dyer and Sanchez.
I'm not going to say them as if we're going to play them. Yeah, obviously, it's hypothetical.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm saying that regardless of regardless of the personnel, you change the style, then you're going to change the amount of goals you're going to let in, because we're not going to be under so much pressure. But back to what I was saying about the players that are going to be, as Richard said, you know, you got to be realistic. These people, they can't just get rid of them like that. They're on big contracts. They're not just going to walk out the door. Also, for them, they might be like, I'm getting X amount of money a week. Why do I need to go see out my contract? That's what they're there for. Contracts are there to protect players as well as it is to protect clubs. But, you know, already it's good signs. Winksy's out the door, for example. That's a great sign for me. Great start. Like, there are heavy links with Davison Sanchez, etc. Galatasaray, 9 mil, whatever. Take the money, go. Like, let's get it moving. But it is going to take a period of time, and there will be players there. And the other thing is as well, having a lot of people in a squad, a lot of players, sometimes with injuries and that, you might need the depth in squad. But you can't just sell 20-odd players. It ain't going to happen. But I'd like to see, before the window's out, realistic hopes. Davinson Sanchez, gone. I'd say Tanganga gone as well. He needs to go now. He's done. I just can sense that Eric Dyer will still be there, like being the fraud that he is, looking great with his
Eric Dyer's going to be there, unfortunately.
I know he is, isn't he?
However much that disappoints me to say that, because I'm not having Eric Dyer. I didn't have him a long time ago. I think he's just been not good enough. We need to improve on him. And all this one about a squad player, come in and let you down as a squad player. So I'm not having Eric Dyer at all. I think Tanganga will leave, and I think players will leave. I think Tanganga will leave.
Well, again, for their own time, for their own play time. Definitely. Some of them, they need their own play time.
These are the types of deals that are going to go down to the wire, don't they? Because they're going to have to want to go to the club that they're being linked with. The money's got to be right, whatever it might be. So there's a lot that goes on in it. But I'm confident that Spurs will shift a load of players. Yeah. Do you reckon we might see a similar deal to, say, something like Matt Doherty? Got paid up, just gone, didn't he? Just like end contract done. Because I'm not against that for a couple of these boys, because if they're going to be sitting around, pay the deals up. So
what we've spoken about Perisic, Gaz, would you be disappointed to see Perisic leave the football club? Because he provided a number of assists for us last season. And as one of you also mentioned earlier about Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, would you be disappointed to see him leave? Because he's been an important player for us recently.
Yeah, look, you know what it is? And I'll go into a debate here. I don't mind if I do, Chris, but if I'm choosing between him and Skip, and this might split opinion. So if you've got Bentancur, Basuma, Maddison, if you're going to use him as in the midfield role there, and then one other. I'm having Højbjerg over Skip, personally. But Højbjerg is going to probably generate a bit more money for you at this particular time. So if you're looking to free up a bit more funds to use for players in and around the squad, that might be the thing. But I think that Højbjerg is not going to want to be a sub player at Tottenham.
I think you need to look a little bit deeper than that. I think Højbjerg, if we're saying we want to be a top 4 side, would Højbjerg be in your first 11?
Yeah.
No. And what neither would Skip, but Skip is a player that can develop, and obviously you look at
I don't think so. I disagree with you there, because I just think that I'm looking at the basic tools that he's got, Oliver Skip, and I think it only goes so far. And I just think that Harry Winks is probably 4 or 5 years in front of Skip where he was. Similar types of player, get the ball, move it sideways, energy.
Far better than Winks, though, I think.
That's your opinion. That's what football's all about. It's all about opinions. But I just don't see that. But I think if I had to pick one of them, I would probably go Højbjerg.
What, over Skip?
Yeah.
All day. Skip, as we call him, he's a Bobby Basic.
I think so, yeah.
And he's been confirmed as a Bobby Basic.
We get a bit carried away because he's one of our own.
I'm not gonna bait up his teammate, but someone that plays football with him on a regular basis. I said, please confirm to me, is Skip a Bobby Basic footballer? Because me and Gaz call him the Bobby Basic, or do you think he's a good player? He goes, he'll pass left, he'll pass right, and he'll tackle.
What? Yeah.
And that's exactly the words of his teammate.
I'm not saying that Højbjerg's the answer, Rich. Far from it. Yeah. But what I'm saying is he's probably on the verge of joining Atletico Madrid for probably going to be about 30 million. Yeah. It's not going to be for cheaper than that, is it, Chris? It's going to be around about 30 million pound. Might even be a little bit, whatever. Yeah.
It's great business.
Atletico Madrid, then you're going to play along with Simeone. I'm looking at Skip at the minute. He couldn't get in the England under-21s team in the Euros. So that's a player that's been playing a hell of a lot of football for Spurs second half of the season. And if you're not getting in that team, the under-21s team, that's a bit of a problem for me. But as I said, I think that Basuma and Bentancur, when they both come back, they're going to be the starters there.
And you got Pepe Sarr.
Yeah, you got Sarr there. So, but I just think it's not a knock on Oliver Skip there. I just think we got if you're gonna pull up Højbjerg, you're gonna have to pull him up as well a little bit. That's just my opinion.
You mentioned Sarr there. Do you think he'll get much Premier League game time next season?
Depends on injuries. I think he's probably second in command, and he under like the Basumas, even the Højbjergs if they stay. I love this. Elaine Gibson. Just to go back onto it. Skip is a top young player. Based on what, Elaine? Elaine, please in the comments elaborate on him being a top young player. Based on what? The fact he's a good role model and doesn't leave his room when he's on tour. Like, apart from that, like, that doesn't make you an elite football player.
No, but look, it's just an interesting debate. But like, where Rich, obviously you're a fan of Skip there, or you obviously you choose him over Højbjerg. What is it about him as a player that you think that?
The reason why I said if our aspirations are to be top 4. Yeah. And to be heading toward top 4, Højbjerg isn't a top 4 player for me at all. Højbjerg was one of the reasons why we were shipping in goals last season. I felt.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not against saying he's the answer.
Yeah,
but if would you? So you're saying you would go Skip over him if you?
I would go youth. Yeah, I'd go youth and youth development. Obviously, Spurs Academy have invested a lot of time, effort, money. They see what we as fans don't see in that progression, and sometimes you have to believe in the system. And I just think Højbjerg for me.
You know his capabilities, though. Skip though, just his basic capabilities. So I'm on about beating a player, having a shot from the edge of the box, 1-2. Do you reckon you can develop that type into that sort of stuff into his game?
Gaz, can I say I watch the under-23s a lot, and or the under-21s now. And Skip, some years ago he was 17 years old playing in the under-23s. He was the best player by a country mile on the pitch. Didn't matter what position, what opposition we had. He was the best player on the pitch. Constantly going forward, spreading passes, spraying balls all over the place. He was a very, very different player playing under different managers like Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte. I think if he got part of his game back to his younger days under Ange Postecoglou, he could be a very, very different player. But time will tell. Of course, he's a young player.
By the way, I'd love nothing more than for him to be a success at Tottenham. It's not a personal attack on Skip. He's one of our own. He's come through the academy. He's a lovely person. He's English. Yeah, 100% you'd want him to be a success. But as you said, Chris, only time will tell. I just have my doubts a little bit.
I just think there's some of the systems that we've had. He's been likened to Harry Winks a lot of the time because he's been passing a lot of balls sideways and backwards. I think that's probably the style of play that we had. So I don't think he really had a choice to be going.
Do you not think you can play a little 1-2 around the edge of the box and have a shot then, Chris? You
well,
can
did
do
that
it.
against Chelsea.
You can do it. You know what I mean? You're not restricted. Someone's not holding you around in the position you have to play for 90 minutes. You know what I mean? You can be adventurous on the football pitch. I don't know whether the shackles might be on under certain managers, you say, but that's going to be an interesting one because that central midfield area, especially when Bentancur left that team for injury for the second half of the season, was a major problem for Tottenham. For sure. So that's something that they're going to have to address big time.
Rich, let's come to you. Jed Spence, what happens to him when you've got the likes of Emerson Royale now and Pedro Porro? What happens to Jed Spence?
Well, what does happen to Jed? Do we chip him out on loan? I think obviously it was a club signing. It wasn't a manager signing when we got him. I'm from Nottingham, so obviously seen Jed quite a bit in the Forest team, and obviously their season that they were champions that came up, and I think obviously showed great promise, and obviously Conte just didn't at all like him, his work ethic, attitude, how he fits in the team. Again, he might be one of those players that just doesn't fit the mould, but I think all the players now have got that blank kind of slate, and there's a real opportunity for him to kind of really showcase his football ability while he's in Australia. I think there's a lot of players that get on that plane now that are going to have to really showcase what they've got, or they're going to be left behind, unfortunately. And Jed's probably one of them. He's young enough to obviously maybe have a Tottenham career if it doesn't work out initially, but I think he's not shown us anything, has he, up to now? So doesn't really.
Majestic, there's been so much speculation about Harry Kane. It looks like now that he's clearly not for sale, and Harry Kane will be a Tottenham Hotspur player next year. How do you think his career will pan out? Do you think he will leave Spurs next summer on a free transfer? How do you think it will pan out?
He needs to call me because I've got his game plan sorted for the next 5 years. Like, if I was Harry Kane, do you know what I'd do? I would ring Real Madrid now and say, look, I'm coming to you next season on a free. Give me the transfer money, not Tottenham, I'll have it. I'll make a deal with Daniel Levy now, say, listen, I'm going to leave next year, but 3-year deal with Real Madrid and I'll be back. This year, score another 25 to 30 goals, giving it 15, 20 to hit Shearer's mark. Go over to Spain, become a Galactico legend, then come back, be a one-man club in England, be a legend, done, and get Shearer's record.
How many times you dreamt that?
That's what he needs to do. Because, I can't see him going anywhere else. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes on a free again next year. Don't be surprised if Man City go, we'll have him for a free. But I'd love him to do that. That's what I'd love to be the plan. But again, if, for example, this season with Ange, we can go and nick a cup or something. Again, there's no Europe this year for us. Because that's what was really disappointing last season. That team we put out against Sheffield United, we had a clear way to get to Wembley that year for the FA Cup. And the one thing is, as great as Man City are and they clean up, we're the team they hate. Pep jokes about getting a victory at Spurs. Like, we are the one thing in a cup.
It all.
Yeah, exactly. Even go back to the days of Ricky Villa against Man City. We are their hoodoo team. So you never know. We go win a cup this season with him, and all of a sudden the pressure's gone. It's like, oh, Harry Kane's won nothing. Well, I've won something, but then it'll be like, well, he's won nothing important. You've only won the Carabao Cup. That's what will happen. The agenda and the narrative will change. The narrative around Spurs is always the same thing, especially with Harry Kane. But, I think even just having him for another season, money can't buy Harry Kane right now. And what I mean by that is, even if you spend £100 million on a player right now, there's no guarantee he's going to give you what Harry Kane is definitely going to give you next season. So I think keeping on to him, at the end of the day, we're not going to lose money on him because he came through the academy. We've had our money's worth out of Harry Kane, that's for sure. So let's hope that he stays and we can do something and he enjoys it. Again, you've got to remember, as a football player, as a human being, got another child on the way, his 4th child, building a house. I can't imagine Harry Kane in the Bundesliga. Imagine the post-match interviews with Harry. So Harry is a great game. Ich habe eine große Schlange. Mein Name ist Bayern Munich, yeah. And then Harry coming in like, yeah, obviously, yeah. No, I can't imagine it. It's not going to happen.
Majestic, do you believe that Harry Kane has met Thomas Tuchel?
He might come around for a cup of tea and a game of FIFA, but yeah, like I just think even if he entertained it and to hear what he had to say, it's like that doesn't mean anything because at the end of the day, Daniel Levy is the one that has to sell him. And we saw what Daniel Levy did with Gareth Bale. Like he got the most money out of a situation to the point that Real Madrid hated us so much they sold Arsenal Ozil just to annoy Daniel Levy. Like that literally was to annoy Levy. They sold Bale, went, haha, Ozil's going there, you mug. So, yeah, I do think it's all down to Daniel Levy. And listen, if Harry wanted to go, he ain't going on that trip. He showed us a couple of years ago when he was like, Mr. Levy, I'm not coming to training. I want to go Man City. And all of a sudden, he was on a holiday in Florida for 3 weeks or whatever it was. If he did not want to be there, then all of a sudden, like he wouldn't be there. He looks happy. He looks ready to go, in my opinion.
Kaz, do you think there's any chance of Daniel Levy and the Tottenham board to persuade Harry Kane to sign a new contract?
Only if there's a clause in it, like or that you can leave in a certain window. So obviously, if you get a rolling deal or 1 or 2 years, but at the first window, if someone matches the release clause and Harry wants to go, then he'll probably go. It'd have to probably be a deal structured to something like that. I think Harry Kane. I think he'll stay at Tottenham. I think that Tottenham, we've got to get back in the Champions League. Like that's where we need to be playing our football. So his goals, I think it's just irreplaceable. You just can't replace him. Like, how do you replace him? What money do you have to spend to replace him? From a selfish point of view, I'm not worried about the money that Tottenham are going to lose. I'm genuinely not. I want to see him on the pitch for another 12 months. I want to see him on the pitch for another season. Yeah, obviously, I don't work on the business side of Tottenham Hotspur. They've just put the season tickets up. They've just backed everything up. So they're not short of a few quid over there, are they, Chris? Let's be honest with you. Look at the money. Look at the deals that they're doing, the concert deals, the boxing deals, the Formula One deals. So, look, I want to see Harry Kane stay. You don't know whether he's going to sign a new contract, but I think it was probably a little bit late in the day. I've said all along, I just think he goes to Man City on a free. And what I mean by that is I think where you could go, why would he go City? Because I think you look at the Kevin De Bruyne situation, he might potentially move on. He can maybe play in that role. He can play up front. There'll be loads of games. And if it's about winning league titles for Harry Kane, who can you go to in Europe apart from Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man City, or Bayern Munich that's a guaranteed title win? No one else. You're not going to anyone else in the Premier League. Like, look at Arsenal, for example. Not that he'd go there. They ain't won a league for 20 years. Spending fortunes. So it's a difficult one. Really, really difficult.
Last couple of questions. Rich, let's come to you. What do Spurs need to do in this remaining transfer window in order to be a contender to finish 4th in the Premier League? Because, we finished 8th last season and, shipped 63 goals in the Premier League. I know we've spoke about defenders already, but what else does Tottenham need to do in this transfer window, bearing in mind that all of the other teams around us, especially the teams above us, are doing big business at the moment?
Yeah, and I think we need to, like I've said in previous years, look at your need within the team, and then try and get recruits that best fit the team, also the position. We all know where they are defensively. I also think it's about getting rid of that bad blood around the squad as well. I think you need to really uplift the team, and you need to have team players within that. And I know that might sound a bit funny to some people, but you do have those players or team members that are a drain on the team, and you need to get rid of those. And whether that's completely kind of isolate them from the team and kind of get rid of them, but you need to have a core of players that really buy into the philosophy of the manager. As we all know, that it's not a guarantee when you buy a marquee player that they fit into the team and they just they make the team better. You hope they do, and you hope that the recruitment process is such that when you get a player in, they're better than what you've already got. And that's obviously what what the new manager's been brought in to do is better players, better style of play, more attractive play. I think we do need to recruit a couple more players. I think it won't be very many, 2 or 3 maybe. And those players need to really be, like I said to you before, the leadership side, really kind of when they're on the pitch, they represent the club, they represent the team. They also can have an impact on play. But I would say across the whole club, we need to have this kind of real philosophy of we believe we can be better, because last season just wasn't good enough. And that's not just the men's team. Obviously, the women's team's gone through a big transition as well. And I think that's also important, that kind of when you look at the club last year, it was in disarray from director of football to like disconnect with the board and the fans and the team and the manager and the captain. We need to have a time of real kind of coming together and then moving forwards as a team towards the top 4.
Majestic, what is the aim for Ange Postecoglou in terms of the league season? Do you think the board have actually said we need to finish top 4? We will give you X amount of players in order to try and finish top 4. Is that the main aim for Tottenham?
I think the first aim is to create an identity of football again. I think that's what Ange is going to try, and I think that's what he will do. And the thing is with him, he keeps using the word he's a winner. And regardless if people want to mock his achievements, saying you've done it in the Farmers League or you've done it in Japan, he don't care. He goes, well, I was there and I won. So all I can do is win in the places I'm at. Doesn't matter whether it's Japan, Australia, or here, I win. You know, and even when he talks about the Asian Cup and that, and he mugs off Sonny going, yeah, Sonny scored an equaliser, but we won. I reminded him. Like he's a winner, like in the way that, you know, Conte and Jose were winners, and we always want winners, but just in a bit of a different way. You know, like he's quite an inspirational sounding person. So I think for him is he's going to really want to imprint an identity. And he keeps saying, you know, he wants to play football that people enjoy and talk about. So I think that's his first thought. And I think if that comes, then everything else comes with it. And like form will come with it, because, you know, the energy is good. And as Richard said, the energy around the players and the camp is right. That is the most important thing. And you know, Richard can testify this more than any of us, but, you know, being an elite athlete, you know, being in an environment that helps your performance, because, you know, and, you know, just to touch on it quickly, because we've all seen it come out this week about poor old Delhi, you know, he is testament of your environment will change the way that you perform. And, you know, when Delhi was in an environment with a manager like Poch, who had his arm around him and showed him a lot of love, he thrived in that environment. Jose is the school of hard love. Someone like Kane will thrive in that environment because he has that mentality. You know, I always just say it, it's the reason why everyone calls Harry Redknapp such a great man manager, because he's the arm round the player kind of thing. He doesn't do anything tactically, but he says, go out there and express yourself. And some players can really take to that. I think with Ange, he's got a level of inspiration, and also there's that side to him that looks like he can switch and he's not going to take nonsense. So I think getting that changing room right is the first thing he needs to do, and get people. Keith says Spurs is not a social club. I appreciate that, but come on, it doesn't take a genius to work out whatever job you work in. If you go to work enjoying yourself, you're going to perform better. So you need it to be a good vibe around the place, and I think that's what he's going to do. And I also think that he is going to be so enthusiastic to implement that style of play. The excitement I'm seeing from James Maddison is coming from Ange. Like, you know, the fact of the matter is, James Maddison could have gone to Newcastle and played in the Champions League. He's come to us, and he says, you see in the little interview that they had together, he goes, what you said to me on the phone, you know, I was making my mind up. You made my mind up for me. And as he said to him, he goes, yeah, but I meant it. I mean what I say about you. You're an important part of this. So I think that his energy is going to be the main focus, and then what will come after that. And even as a fan, if I'm buying into this project, I'm not going to start throwing the toys at the pram after 8-9 games. I'm going to see what he's got for us, because at the end of the day, you look what he did with Celtic, where he took them. They went on to win everything in Scotland. And I know it's Scotland and it's the Farmers League and all of that, but you can only do what's in front of you. So I think philosophy and energy is what he's going to focus on more than places or anything.
Yeah.
Gaz, of course, we've got our 3 friendlies, one in Australia, one in Thailand, one in Singapore, playing West Ham, Leicester and Lion City Sailors. We then come back to England and play Shakhtar Donetsk at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. 2 days later, we travel then to Barcelona before the season starts for Tottenham on the Sunday against Brentford. The 5 teams that we're playing during pre-season, are they good enough tests for Tottenham going into the new Premier League season?
I think so, yeah, for sure. I love playing against West Ham. It's a big game for me, like as a fan, like obviously with a rivalry. They'll be fresh off the back of winning their Conference League. Good start, be a good competitive game from the get-go. You move forward with that one. You got the Leicester game, James Maddison. It's going to be the one playing against his old team immediately. Moving a little bit further on, there's one in the middle there. What was the game in the middle between them, sandwiched in between the Shakhtar game?
Lion City Sailors. It was meant to be Roma.
I'll let you make the assessment.
Sailors.
I'll let you make the assessment on Lion City Sailors, Chris. But yeah, as for Barcelona and Shakhtar Donetsk, going to be interesting to see what sort of teams filled it out against Shakhtar Donetsk, with the team having to travel to Barcelona probably just a couple of days later. That friendly's only just been put in, that Barcelona one, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's a new one, so that'd be interesting. But I think, look, there's a lot of players there who've got to be chomping at the bit to try and make an impact and prove to themselves that they've got a future under Ange, and it has to be immediately. For some of them, it has to be immediately. There isn't, like, I know you're trying to find your way in pre-season. Unfortunately, for a couple of them, in my opinion, they need to be making an impact from the get-go, and that starts at West Ham.
Last question for you all. Will Ange Postecoglou be the man to put a trophy in the cabinet for Tottenham? It's all gone quiet.
First. No one wants to go first, do they?
It's tough. You know what it is? I just think, like, the money that you look at what Arsenal are trying to do. Obviously, Arsenal have got eyes on the title. Yeah, spending a fortune. You got Man City who will go again. You got Liverpool will go again. Tottenham are trying to have a go. It's so difficult. Like that Carabao Cup when it was the Carling Cup and the Worthington Cup when we won it was looked at as a trophy. It was like a bit of a sham, wasn't it? But a lot of these teams target that competition now. It's the first one out the gate, and it's targeted, and it's difficult to win.
Well, Gaz, even Pochettino put weakened teams out in the FA Cup and the League Cup. Of course, Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte done it as well. As Majestic said, that Sheffield United game, very, very disappointing. Will he take these competitions seriously? Will he put out a full strength?
Absolutely.
Team? Yeah,
absolutely. Have to. Tottenham need to win a trophy. The stigma's there. We're all sick and tired of it, but I think it's getting harder and harder, and it comes with no guarantees. We had the luck of the draw last year, big time, in the Champions League, and the Carabao Cup. That Champions League group that we got, and that AC Milan side that I saw at the Spurs Stadium, what we saw on, they weren't all that, were they? They
got to the semis.
Come on, but that was the route for us there, and the FA Cup when you get knocked out, it's not been good enough. But it's all about the luck of the draw. But I think there's a lot of teams vying for them competitions now. It's going to be even more difficult next season. But yeah, to answer to your question, yeah, why not? Big Ange to deliver the trophy for Tottenham. Why not? Why not? Big Ange, come on, he's going to do it. Be positive.
What about you?
See, I never be negative, but I might as well be positive.
I'd love to think that it's about building the confidence in the philosophy, and then a little bit of luck in the draw, and going deep into the competitions, and then it's at anybody. So I'd like to think that we'd obviously get further than we have done previously, and then hopefully with the players that we've got, they kind of take over and they get us over the line. Obviously, winning mentality, we've had that in other managers, but I think with the manager we've got now, the expectations there, he wants to make the team better. So yeah, so why not kind of, I don't know, maybe FA Cup, kind of get into the final and see what happens.
Majestic, what are you saying?
I think, especially that there's no European football, this is going to be the one thing that I think he can, what is it? The FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, because we're not going to win the Premier League. So why would you not go for those all in? Did you want the Europa Conference League, by the way, on the last day of the season? No, I wanted out. I just want a year. there's no point going to like Romania and playing FC potatoes. Like you got to travel back and then you get battered on the Sunday by Newcastle, and it's like, yeah, but we played FC potatoes. Like I know West Ham had a great night, and it was, you know, a big moment for them in their history and all that kind of stuff. But
we're in a different level to West Ham.
And also, if we won the Conference League, everyone would be like, oh, it's only the Conference League. Like, it's pointless. So,
do you think we're on a different level to West Ham?
Absolutely.
Look at that Spurs season last year. We're all that season was draining for all of us as Spurs fans. We finished 20 points above West Ham.
Yeah,
20 points. That's huge. And now we've had an awful season, so it's good for them. I do think there's a little levels in the Premier League for me. But it's good for them, but I don't know if we'd get as much credit if we won that.
But yeah, if the guy keeps going on how much of he's a winner, he's going to take everything seriously, isn't he? Really, and the fact of the matter is, cup competitions, as Rich said, some of it's luck of the draw, some of it's the things that are going on around you. Like, you know, Man City play Manchester United, one of them goes out. Arsenal play Liverpool, one of them goes out. You know, we just want to see a trophy, and I think the main thing this year, you get the top 4 and all that kind of stuff. You win a trophy. The hoodoo's gone from Harry. He's won a trophy with his club that he loves, and all of a sudden there might be a new energy around the football club, and you can start to build. But, you know, if anyone can give it a go, and I'm going to get behind it, seems to be Ange. All of us at first, Ange, big Ange, but he's literally just talking. He's won a lot of Spurs fans over, and I think
cracking me up in the week. He had the press photos. He was breathing in for them.
Oh yeah, he was. But
a lot of breathing. I can relate to that.
He's the kind of manager that, you know, the last time we had a manager that we really got behind and fell in love with was Poch. So we won't mention him. I'll go back to Harry Redknapp. But yeah, so let's hope he can do it. And do you know what, chaps and ladies that are watching as well, I just want to enjoy going to Spurs again. Yeah. That's all I ask, is to go over there. And you know what? Say you lose 3-2, and it's, you know, but you've scored a couple of worldies, and Son's had a great run, and Madison. I know it sounds like a loser's mentality, but right now I just need to fall back in love with Beast of TH and Martin Joel. Oh, Martin was great. Yeah, you know, Defoe. Hopefully they can come back with Mido, and maybe we have Let the King as well, you know, good players. I used to love Martin. Martin was my guy. When he called Gabby Logan darling, he's like, hello, darling. That's the kind of guy I can get behind. And I think Big Ange has that sort.
Like him, Ange,
but the fact of the matter, he calls everyone mate. He's like, you know, what I said, I meant mate. Like, I just love he just calls everyone mate.
Majestic, I've got to ask, because you've mentioned him, how are you going to react when Pochettino comes back to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in Chelsea?
I at first was like, look, we didn't ring him. It's completely up to him to get a new job. I don't hate Chelsea the way I hate Arsenal. Arsenal are the only London team I despise. Like West Ham, I've got a lot of friends who are West Ham fans. And, you know, Chelsea, okay, I don't like Chelsea. I'm not going to applaud Chelsea. But I don't care about them the way I care about Arsenal. However, you know, the way I then saw him talking, like on that the first press conference, I know what he's doing. He loves to be loved, Poch. And he's playing lip service to the Chelsea fans.
Yeah.
He didn't have to. He just didn't. He could have just gone, yeah, it's a big job. I'm excited to get it on. Oh, well, they're one of the biggest clubs and all that. I'm like, biggest club that you lost 4-2 to because you played Sonny at left wing back, you Burke. Like, I started all my pent up anger towards Poch came out with his bad decision making. Yeah, a massive club because you lost the final to him and a semi. Yeah. When he comes back now, he might have to get a Stone Cold Stunner. You hear the Stone Cold music come on. It's been me and Gaz walking out of bald heads giving him a stunner.
The excine's going off and on.
Yeah.
Richard, thanks so much for joining me this evening. You've been a wonderful guest as normal. Please tell everyone where they can find you on social media and what you're up to at the moment.
Just, Marathon Champ on Twitter and Instagram, and all those kind of usual places. Just training at the moment for New York Marathon in November. Heavily working with my foundation, the Richard Whitehead Foundation. Do a lot of work all over the UK, which is awesome. And just really looking forward to this season. I think last season, like the boys were saying, draining. And I was like, literally, I need a break from this bullshit. It was like, just proper, like, depressing. Every time. Because I'm a Nike athlete, so I get like box seats and the Nike box, stuff like that. So I went to a lot of home games last year, and I was turning the games down. I was like, no, I'm not driving all the way from Nottingham to see that shit.
Even with the incredible box facilities, that must have been hard, Rich, because those boxes are fantastic.
It's hard. It's a hard life. but especially last season. So hopefully I can utilise them a little bit more for the drinking and the old footy. So I'm looking, but also I think the fans. You know what? You know when we went to the stadium last year. I don't know what it was, but before even kick off, the fans were like bitching with each other.
Absolutely,
it was just negative. I've never heard it so negative. And
you could easily have a row in the crowd, Rich, last year.
No,
little pockets going off everywhere, little arguments going on. It's not good, toxic,
all
very
over
toxic.
the place. So I think we as fans, and this is at that 12th man, I think we as fans have a responsibility now to get behind the manager, get behind the team, and actually create that fortress. When we were unbeaten that season, when we were unbeaten at home, just before we changed into the new stadium, I remember going then and thinking, what a team, what a place, what a bunch of fans. This every game you go in, you're thinking you can win whoever they are. The Liverpools and Man United, we are brave, and that's what I want to see this year. A brave team, and so I am excited for it.
Majestic, before we talk about your podcast, you recently played against the Tottenham Hotspur legends. Tell us all about that.
Well, 14th of May for the Jukesy Foundation. Big shout out to Jukesy. We played the Spurs legends, and what a lineup it was! Like, you know, when you see Spurs legends now, it's like, you know, and big them up. I love them. Like, you know, Steve Sedgley, David Howells, like some OGs. Stuart Nethercutt. This lineup consisted of Aaron Lennon, Edgar Davids,
what a lovely guy,
Keane,
Aaron Lennon,
Defoe, Huddleston, Gomez in goal, Ledley. It's just incredible. The lineup was absolutely incredible. And, you know, on our team, we had Yaya Toure. I subbed Yaya Toure. Like, not many people can say they've subbed Yaya Toure. Yaya, you're blowing off your caption. Like, I've done it to Yaya. So it was such an incredible day. And, you know, just when they blew up, because the gaffer, Ray Winston, actually made me captain. So I was like, this is incredible. I get to line up against Ledley. And I just remember when the kickoff, running up to just sit on Ledley King and Dawson. And I was like, oh my God, this is like playing FIFA in real life. And it was incredible how much they talk. That's one thing I took away from it. That was like a military operation. Dawes, you there? Yeah, I've got him. Got the big man, I'm with him. Like,
I heard them talking to each other, saying you were the hardest opponent they've ever come.
Absolutely, yeah. But you know, for me, I made Michel Vaughan take out a great save in the second.
Oh, high class save.
He was going top bins. I said to him afterwards, I said, Michel, like, you could have let me have my moment, mate. But yeah, it was absolutely fantastic, and I believe we're looking to do it again next season. And as soon as those tickets go on sale, people buy them. It was such an incredible day. And Tommy Huddleston, just what a football player, you know, like, especially in a game where you've got a bit of time and you're not pressured, but he could just spray the ball.
You talked about saves there, Michelle. What about Chris's save from our shot when we played at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium?
Oh,
Chris, I'll tell you what.
Fantastic, wasn't it?
High levels, mate.
Thanks for that, Gaz. I didn't even pay Gaz to say that either.
I've been waiting 1 hour and 28 minutes to slip that in. I've done it there.
Well, tell us all about the podcast, because for those who, you know, people don't know, how do they not know? But tell us all about the podcast, how it started, how long it's been going, and what people can expect.
So we do a podcast called Men in Black. It's all about aliens. No, not really. The same old Spurs magic, Gaz. It started with an idea on a walk, didn't it?
Yeah, we was out on a walk,
during lockdown. Because we were just talking Spurs like we do. Like, mate, we should turn this into a podcast.
Yeah.
And so we started doing it 3 seasons ago. And in that time, we've had 4 or 5 managers.
Yeah.
Says it all, didn't it, really? You know, so it has been really difficult times. But yeah, so we do it as weekly as we can. Obviously, my schedule's quite difficult with the touring stuff that I do. But we try and get in as much as possible. And it's just, look, me and Gaz have been mates since before secondary school, primary school, because both played football in the local area. He played for Enfield, I played for Norseman. There's a lot of rivalry there. Me and Gaz actually had a fight on our first day of secondary school.
I won.
It went to cards. It went to judges' cards.
Right,
so yeah, you know, it's our therapy with everyone, you know, and like, you know, we always watch your stuff, Chris, and get the information and stuff. And I think with our podcast, the USP of it really is a dynamic between me and Gaz being friends, and we try and add a lot of humor into it as well. We just try and laugh at things, you know, like
you have to.
We have to. And the thing is, I never forget when we first made the name Same Old Spurs, SOS. Oh, it's a bit negative. I said, yeah, but it is the same old Spurs. I'm 36 now, and it has been the same old Spurs all my life. And if we start turning into Manchester United of the late 90s and win everything, we'll be the same old Spurs, but in a positive. So it works twofold, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head of everything you said there, mate.
But just more than that, it's just like doing the podcast, what we learned, and you know, people like yourself and Richard tonight, connecting with fellow Spurs fans, and there's so many people out there that do a great job, you know. And
look, I'm engaging all day with Spurs fans. There's a lot of insightful Spurs fans. They all want to have an opinion. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and it's good. It's good. Look, you got to be trying to be, as a fan, I try and encourage everyone, try and be positive, especially.
And
now.
you were the Negatron.
And I sometimes I can be negative, but I think, look, when you look at Spurs over the last few
I was
seasons,
the Negatron at the end of the season, wasn't I?
But I think you got a new season here. You got a new manager, a couple of new players coming in. You've got Tottenham got some really good players there. You know what I mean? And if we can add a couple, get excited a little bit about it. Do you know what I mean? There's no point being negative. If you're 10 games in, 8 games in, if it all starts to unravel and we're not doing all that, then be negative. Criticize who you want. But at the moment, if you're a football fan, just try and look forward to the new season that's coming. Enjoy it.
I've got to admit, you've been so much more positive than I thought you would be this evening, which has been.
Really? Have you been doing your history? Have you been doing a bit of research on me, Chris? The Negatron. No, I'm joking. No. But no, I think you have to be. I think you have to be. Like I said, as you look at the front players that we've got, and I just want to repeat myself here, but Kulusevski, the season before last, top player.
You look well class.
People are making when it comes to a comparison with him and Saka, there's people going, I have Kula instead of him. Yeah. That was what it was. You got Heung-min Son the season before last, picks up a golden boot. Harry Kane scoring 30 goals, 25 goals every season. You got Brazil's number 9 that needs to turn up. You got a £35 million midfielder in Basuma. You got Bentancur's a joy to watch on his day. You know what I mean? He's as good as they come when it comes to midfielders. World Cup winning centre half. You know what I mean? You need it all to come together. You need the manager to do that as well. You need to stay free of injuries. A couple of more signs. But yeah, I'm trying to be positive.
So Chris, are you heading out there for the tour?
I am indeed.
When do you go?
Tomorrow morning.
Wow. Who are you flying with?
I'll tell you after.
Okay, nice. Well, like, I'm a plane geek, you see, and going that far is long.
It's long. It's a long old trip. I done South Korea last year. That was 21 hours coming back, and I got off that plane. And I must say, I said never again. And then, of course, as soon as this trip come up, I was like, "Yep, I'm there." But of course, there's no European football this season, so I've got to take any trip I can. But I am really looking forward to seeing Ange work with these players and seeing if he can get the best out of some of these players that haven't performed in recent seasons, particularly those players that have come back from loan. So really looking forward to this trip.
Or a bit of bronze and all for you.
Sorry?
Back to 40 or bronze and all for you, or the sunblock? What's your choice?
Yeah.
What goes in the bag?
Well, it's actually winter out in Australia at the moment,
really?
so the weather will be interesting. Yeah, wow. Thailand will be better though.
Killed me there.
Bring me back some Tim Tams from Australia, Chris. They're their version of like a penguin, and they're amazing.
I'll try and remember. Well, Majestic and Gaz, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Hopefully, it's not going to be that long before you come back and talk about Tottenham Hotspur again. And hopefully, Gaz, as you said, the good times are ahead. And hopefully, Ange can bring some kind of success to Tottenham Hotspur in the very, very near future. Richard, Majestic, Gaz, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. And until the next time, I will see you in Australia. Come on, you Spurs.
Up the Spurs.